August 17, 1943, 26,000 feet over Regensburg, Germany. Lieutenant Robert Rosie Rosenthal stares through blood-covered plexiglass as another B-17 Flying Fortress bursts apart near his right wing. The plane, called Sentimental Journey, carrying 10 men he shared drinks with the previous evening, spins violently toward the ground, leaving behind dark smoke and scattered debris. His bomber, Rosie's Riveters, shakes violently as 20mm shells tear through the metal frame. One shell rips into the radio room. A second blasts through where the waist gunner stands, barely missing Staff Sergeant Mike Rodriguez by just 6 inches. A third strikes engine number 3, which instantly starts leaking oil and erupts in flames. Rosenthal begins counting the blazing planes dropping from their positions. 7, 8, 9, 12, 15. The morning briefing predicted they might lose around 5 of their forces. The deadly reality playing out beyond his window suggests numbers closer to 25. The issue isn't the bombers themselves. The B-17 represents incredible engineering. For powerful engines, 1350 caliber guns, protective plating, fuel tanks that seal themselves when punctured. The real problem? The Germans have discovered precisely where to aim their weapons. Messerschmitt Bf 109 fighters attack the formation like furious wasps, focusing their shots on particular spots: the cockpit area, the engines, where the wings connect. They're not randomly spraying bullets everywhere. They understand the vulnerable spots, and they're hitting them with deadly accuracy. Colonel Curtis LeMay stands inside the operations center at 8th Air Force Headquarters in England, reviewing casualty reports with a face like carved stone. The Regensburg Schweinfurt mission, which history books will name Black Thursday, takes 60 B-17s in just one day. 600 men vanished. But what troubles him most is the pattern he notices. The bombers that return all display damage in identical locations. Wings full of punctures, tail sections torn apart, fuselage sides riddled with openings like cheese. The Army Air Force's answer seems clear. Add extra armor where the damage appears. Strengthen the wings. Reinforce the tail sections. Add thicker metal to the fuselage sides. Engineers at Wright Field have already drafted plans. More protective plating on wings where holes cluster. Additional armor on tail sections. Stronger fuselage panels where bullet impacts concentrate. It makes sense. It seems reasonable. Every military specialist agrees this must happen. There's just one issue. In a modest office at Columbia University's Statistical Research Group, a 42-year-old mathematician wearing thick spectacles and speaking with a strong Hungarian accent examines the identical damage reports. Abraham Wald reviews the information 3 times, then grabs paper and starts drawing. What he's preparing to suggest will make every military specialist think he's completely insane. His recommendation? Install the armor everywhere except where the bullet holes appear. The generals will think it's lunacy. The engineers will say it's backwards. The aviation specialists will claim it's mathematically absurd. They're all mistaken. And Abraham Wald is preparing to save more American servicemen than any individual weapons technology created during the entire conflict. What the military hasn't realized yet is they're interpreting the information completely incorrectly. They're making a thinking error so basic, so deadly, that it's costing thousands of lives. Abraham Wald recognizes what they cannot. The bullet holes they're examining are on aircraft that successfully return home. The lethal damage, that's on the planes that never made it back. Background and previous solutions. The armor challenge starts in 1942 when American B-17 Flying Fortresses begin flying long-distance missions over Nazi-controlled Europe. The initial outcomes are disastrous. On August 17, 1942, 12 B-17s strike the Rouen-Sotteville rail yards in France, marking the first American heavy bomber operation over Europe. 1 bomber goes down. That equals an 8 casualty rate. Terrible but manageable. 3 months afterward, on November 23, 1942, 31 B-17s attacked the U-boat facilities at St. Nazaire. 3 don't come back, still bearable. But by middle of 1943, the numbers turn lethal. The second Schweinfurt attack on October 14, 1943 claims 60 bombers from 291 that took off, representing a 20.6 loss rate. At this casualty rate, complete bomb groups will disappear within mere weeks. Even worse, the survivors land looking like flying junkyards. Hundreds of bullet punctures, destroyed control mechanisms, engines ripped apart by shells. Some bombers touch down with more than 200 documented impacts. Colonel Malcolm C. Grow, lead surgeon of the 8th Air Force, travels to a bomber station in England and observes the damaged plane's landing. He tallies the holes, charts their positions, takes pictures of the damage distribution. The proof appears undeniable. The wings suffer serious damage. Dozens of openings grouped around the fuel containers. The fuselage sides are penetrated. The tail areas are destroyed by shell fire. The rear gunner locations display concentrated impacts. Grow forwards his discoveries to right field with an urgent suggestion. Install armor plates on the damaged sections. If wings absorb hits, protect the wings. If tails get destroyed, protect the tails. The engineers completely concur. The Army Air Force's Material Command calls an emergency session. Aircraft designers from Boeing, Consolidated, and Lockheed participate. Everyone examines the same information. Pictures of returning bombers riddled with bullet punctures. The agreement is total. Strengthen the sections displaying damage. There's just one challenge: where to install the armor without making the bomber too heavy for flight. A B-17G weighs 65,000 pounds when fully loaded. Every pound of armor means one less pound of explosives, fuel, or bullets. The engineers determine they can add roughly 500 pounds of extra armor plating without drastically affecting performance. But 500 pounds won't come close to protecting all the damaged sections they're observing. They must make decisions. Right field suggests solution alpha. Focus armor on the wings where fuel containers sit. The logic makes sense. Protect the fuel, protect the plane. Estimated weight, 480 pounds. Estimated bomber survival improvement, 15. Boeing responds with solution beta. Spread armor throughout the fuselage to shield the crew areas. Keep the pilots alive. Keep the bomber airborne. Estimated weight, 520 pounds. Estimated improvement, 18. Consolidated proposes solution gamma. Heavy armor on the tail area where rear gunners experience high deaths. Protect the defensive stations. Maintain firepower. Weight, 445 pounds. Improvement, 12. Each suggestion seems perfectly logical based on the damage information. Each follows sound engineering thinking. Each has passionate supporters among experienced aircraft designers. The argument continues for weeks. Pentagon meetings, technical gatherings at Wright Field, intense debates in England between combat leaders and headquarters personnel. Colonel Curtis LeMay, leading the 305th Bomb Group, argues strongly for wing protection. If we lose engines or fuel, we crash. Protect the wings. Brigadier General Haywood S. Hansel Jr. disagrees. Dead pilots can't fly. Protect the cockpit. General Ira Eaker, commanding the 8th Air Force, demands information. Solid numbers. Scientific examination. In February 1943, the Statistical Research Group at Columbia University receives an urgent message from the military. They need mathematicians to examine bomber weakness and suggest best armor positioning. The SRG is an uncommon group, civilian mathematicians tackling secret military challenges. The membership includes future stars of American mathematics: Milton Friedman, future Nobel winner, Leonard Jimmy Savage, Frederick Mosteller, W. Alan Wallace, and Abraham Wald. Wald represents the group's most mysterious figure. Born in Hungary Jewish, he escaped Nazi-occupied Europe in 1938. He barely communicates in English. He's never served in uniform. He's never even observed AB-17 except in images. He possesses no aviation knowledge, no engineering training, no qualifications that make him suitable to advise on armor positioning for combat planes. What he possesses is a brain that identifies patterns others overlook. The military delivers him containers of damage documentation, pictures of bullet-filled bombers, and charts displaying where returning planes absorbed hits. They anticipate an answer within 2 weeks. Wald provides one in 3 days. And it's the complete opposite of what every specialist suggested. Hero introduction Abraham Wald doesn't appear like someone preparing to transform military aviation. At 42 years old, he measures 5 feet 7 inches, skinny almost to the point of frail, with wireframe glasses constantly sliding down his face. His clothing hangs loosely on his body, like sheets on a line. He communicates in English with such a heavy Hungarian accent that co-workers sometimes require him to repeat statements 3 times. His workspace at Columbia University represents total disorder. Documents piled in unstable stacks, mathematical publications covering every flat space, a chalkboard filled with formulas that appear like modern art to anyone lacking a doctorate in statistics. But his history reveals a different narrative. Born in Cluj, Romania in 1902 to a Jewish household, Wald demonstrated mathematical genius young. By age 23, he'd finished his doctorate in mathematics at the University of Vienna. By 30, he was releasing pioneering research in geometry and econometrics that would eventually earn him comparisons to legends like John von Neumann. Then 1938 arrived. Nazi Germany absorbed Austria. Jewish teachers lost their positions. Wald, working in Vienna, suddenly became unemployable and faced terrible danger. He escaped to America with practically nothing: some clothing, a few volumes, his mathematical notebooks. He reached New York speaking minimal English, without job opportunities, and 43 in his wallet. The Cowles Commission for Research in Economics hired him almost accidentally. They required someone capable of advanced statistical work, and Wald came inexpensively. He spent 4 years in obscurity, releasing papers on econometrics that nobody beyond specialized academic communities noticed. Then December 7, 1941 arrived. Pearl Harbor changed America overnight. The government suddenly required mathematicians, many of them, to solve military challenges. Statistical evaluation of weapon effectiveness, probability computations for mission organization, improvement of logistics and supply systems. In early 1942, the Statistical Research Group established at Columbia University under the Office of Scientific Research and Development. They gathered the finest mathematical talents available. Wald got an invitation letter in February. His credentials for military evaluation: none. He'd never discharged a weapon, never sat inside an aircraft, never stepped foot on a military installation. He understood nothing about armor, nothing about aviation, nothing about combat strategies. What he understood was mathematics, particularly probability theory and statistical reasoning. And in March 1943, when the Army Air Forces delivers the SRG containers of bomber damage documentation, the assignment lands on Wald's workspace almost randomly. Other mathematicians are occupied with torpedo guidance mechanisms and naval weapons challenges. Wald is free. He opens the initial container and removes pictures of AB-17 that barely made it home with 187 bullet punctures. Another bomber with the complete left wing destroyed. A third with the tail area almost severed. Colonel Gross documentation contains detailed diagrams displaying where returning planes absorb damage. Wings, 42 of observed impacts. Fuselage, 31 of impacts. Tail section, 18 of impacts. Engines, 9 of impacts. The suggestion from aviation specialists is obvious. Armor the wings initially, then the fuselage, then the tail. Wald examines the documentation 3 times. Then he grabs a pencil and begins computing. 30 minutes afterward, he puts down the pencil and stares at the wall. They're examining the wrong airplanes, he states to an empty workspace. He picks up the telephone and contacts Alan Wallace, the SRG director. "I need a meeting with the military officers," Wald states in his thick accent. "I need to tell them they are doing everything incorrectly." Wallace pauses. "Abraham, these are colonels and generals, aviation specialists, engineers from Boeing. You're claiming they're all mistaken." "Yes," Wald responds simply. "They are making a basic logical mistake. If we follow their suggestions, many additional men will perish. Can you demonstrate it? Wallace asks. Wald glances at his computations. Yes, with mathematics. How long do you require to prepare? I am ready now, Wald replies. Secret Analysis and Discovery, March 18, 1943. Statistical Research Group Offices, Columbia University. Abraham Wald works by himself at his desk, surrounded by damaged documentation and pictures. The office sits dark except for one desk lamp throwing harsh shadows over his documents. He's not constructing a model. He's not running experiments. He's doing something much more effective, pure mathematical examination. The crucial understanding arrives suddenly, like a light turning on. Everyone is studying the bombers that return home. They're plotting bullet punctures on returning planes and assuming those spots require armor. But that's incorrect thinking. The bombers they're examining survived their damage. The bullet openings in the wings didn't destroy them. The shots through the fuselage didn't eliminate them. The torn tail sections didn't stop them from landing. Those sections can absorb damage. The lethal damage, the shots that actually destroy bombers, is on the planes that never return home. The aircraft that crashed in Germany, in France, in the English Channel. The ones nobody's studying because there's nothing remaining to study. Wald removes a fresh sheet of paper and starts building what will eventually be named a survivorship bias examination. If bullets strike aircraft randomly, and weapons data confirms they do, then returning planes should display random damage spread. But they don't. They display heavy damage in certain sections, wings, fuselage, tail, and almost zero damage in others, engines, cockpit, fuel system control zones. Why? Wald's response, because aircraft hit in those undamaged sections don't return home. He creates a basic diagram. On one side, a bomber with bullet openings marked in wings, fuselage, and tail, the pattern everyone's observed. On the other side, a bomber with openings marked in engines, cockpit, and fuel controls, the pattern nobody's observed because those aircraft are in German territory. The mathematics is beautiful in its straightforwardness. Observed damage positions equal non-lethal hit areas. Unobserved damage positions equal lethal hit areas. Therefore, armor should go on the sections displaying zero damage on returning planes. It's counterintuitive. It opposes every specialist opinion. It appears crazy. But the math is undeniable. Wald dedicates 2 additional days building formal statistical evidence. He computes expected damage distributions under random fire patterns. He considers German fighter methods and weapons capabilities. He estimates the likelihood that the observed damage pattern could happen by accident if all sections were equally vulnerable. The probability, less than 0.001, 1/10 of 1, effectively impossible. His documentation is 12 pages of complex mathematical examination with one clear suggestion on page 11. Armor reinforcement should be placed primarily on the engine nacelles, cockpit zone, and central fuel system controls, sections displaying minimal damage on returning planes. These represent critical weakness zones where damage stops aircraft return. He includes a vital computation. His examination suggests current casualty rates of 5 to 7 per mission could drop to 2 to 3 with correct armor positioning. Over a year of operations, that's potentially 4,000 aircraft saved. 40,000 crew members. Wald submits the documentation to W. Allen Wallace on March 23, 1943. Wallace reads it twice, then grabs the phone. I need to schedule a briefing at the Pentagon, he states. Immediately. What's the topic? The scheduler inquires. Wallace glances at Wald's documentation. A mathematician is preparing to tell the Army Air Forces that all their aviation specialists are wrong about armor positioning. There's a pause on the line. This should be interesting, the scheduler responds dryly. Neither man realizes just how interesting it's preparing to become. Bureaucratic battle, April 6, 1943. The Pentagon, Arlington, Virginia. Conference room, 3C427. The room fills with uniforms and credentials. Colonel Malcolm C. Grow, who led the original damage surveys. Boeing engineers who designed the B-17. Wright Field material scientists. Army Air Force brass with enough stars between them to fill a constellation. And Abraham Wald in an ill-fitting suit, clutching a folder of documents. Major General Oliver P. Eccles, Chief of the Air Material Command, opens the session. Gentlemen, Columbia's Statistical Research Group claims they have new suggestions on armor positioning. Professor Wald, you have the floor. Wald stands, adjusting his spectacles. His English is hesitant, heavily accented. Thank you, General. I have examined the damage documentation from bomber operations. I believe the current armor positioning suggestions are wrong. Colonel Grow leans forward. Wrong? Professor, with all respect, I personally examined over 200 damaged planes. The information is obvious. Wings and fuselage absorb the most hits. Yes, Wald agrees. But that is the challenge. The room becomes silent. A Boeing engineer speaks up. I'm sorry, Professor. Did you just claim that seeing where our aircraft take damage is a challenge? Not seeing the damage is the challenge, Wald clarifies. His accent makes him sound more uncertain than his mathematics actually is. You are observing damage on planes that survived. You are not observing damage on planes that crashed. General Eccles frowns. We can't study crashed aircraft. They're in German territory, or at the bottom of the channel. Exactly, Wald states. And that is what my examination addresses. He unfolds his diagram. The two bombers, one with observed damage, one with inferred fatal damage. If bullets strike randomly, Wald explains, then all sections should display similar damage. But they do not. Some sections, engines, cockpit, fuel controls, display almost zero damage on returning planes. Why? Because planes hit in those sections do not return. The Wright Field chief engineer interrupts. That's guesswork. You can't demonstrate what happened to crashed planes. I can demonstrate it with probability theory, Wald responds. He distributes his 12-page documentation. Mathematics is here. Under random fire distribution, the likelihood of observing this damage pattern if all sections were equally survivable is less than 1/10 of 1. For 5 minutes, the only sound is pages turning and engineers whispering calculations. Finally, Colonel Gross speaks. Professor Wald, your mathematics may be accurate, but your conclusion is insane. You're instructing us to armor the sections that aren't getting struck. I am instructing you to armor the sections where damage is lethal, Wald corrects. The Boeing engineer shakes his head. This opposes every principle of combat aircraft design. We armor the sections by taking fire. You armor the sections where damage is survivable, Wald counters. That is waste of weight. You should armor sections where even small damage causes loss of plane. The room erupts. Voices overlap. Engineers cite decades of aviation knowledge. Military officers reference combat documentation from squadron leaders. Someone points out that Wald has never even observed combat, never sat in a bomber, never faced enemy fire. Wald stands quietly, letting the storm pass over him. When the room finally quiets, he speaks. May I ask a question? His voice is soft but cuts through the tension. General Eccles nods. How many of the bombers you examined for damage examination, how many had damage to engine nacelles? Wald asks. Colonel Grow consults his notes. Approximately 9 displayed engine damage. And how much damage to the cockpit zone? Perhaps 6, Grow replies. And how many bombers did not return from those same missions? Wald continues. Grow's face turns pale. He's starting to understand it. Average mission casualty rate was 7.2. Wald nods slowly. So sections displaying 9 damage and sections displaying 6 damage, these have casualty rate of 7.2. Does this seem random to you? Or does it suggest that all planes suffered engine and cockpit damage, but only 7 survived it long enough to show you the openings? The room falls completely silent. General Eccles leans back in his chair, studying Wald. You're claiming the absence of proof is proof. Yes, General, Wald replies. The aircraft you are not observing, those show you where armor is required. A full minute of silence follows. Then Eccles speaks. Colonel Grow, what's the weight budget for additional armor? 520 pounds, sir, Grow answers. Eccles looks at Wald. Professor, if we have 520 pounds of armor to distribute, where exactly do you suggest it goes? Wald pulls out another document. I have prepared specific suggestions. Engine nacelles, 280 pounds. Cockpit reinforcement, 160 pounds. Fuel system protection, 80 pounds. And your confidence in this examination? Eccles asks. I am a mathematician, General, Wald responds. I do not deal with confidence. I deal in probability. The probability that my examination is incorrect is less than 0.1. The probability that current suggestions will fail to reduce casualties is approximately 85. Eccles looks around the room, at the assembled specialists. Gentlemen, objections. The Boeing engineer raises his hand. Sir, with respect, this is the most counterintuitive suggestion I've ever heard. Every instinct claims it's wrong. But is the mathematics wrong? Eccles presses. A long pause. No, sir. Mathematics appears sound. Eccles turns to the right field representative. How fast can you implement Professor Wald's suggestions? If we prioritize this, 6 weeks for prototype armor kits. 3 months for full production. Make it 4 weeks, Eccles orders. And get me test results from actual combat operations within 90 days. He looks at Wald. Professor, the Army Air Forces are betting many lives on your mathematics. I hope you're correct. Wald adjusts his glasses. General, I am always correct about mathematics. It is people who are usually wrong. For the first time all day, someone laughs.